This is all right. So, welcome to Money Huddle live video edition, or what should we say? Home isolation, shelter in place edition.
Shelter in place. I like that. This is definitely our first virtual podcast.
Yeah,
So I
let's
hope
see.
I hope it
Ho-
sounds good.
Hopefully, it sounds good. Hopefully, we don't look dumb on camera. But they say this is what video is the wave of the future, right?
That's right.
Uh,
Well, it's good to see you, buddy. And
yeah,
to all of our listeners out there, it's good for we've got a lot to cover today. It's been a little while since we've done a podcast. A lot has happened in the
yeah.
marketplace, and
Just a few things.
just a
Nothing,
few things.
nothing too crazy. Just a few things. Yeah.
But it's good to be back and being in touch with people, even though, one of the greatest joys I think I have with this job that's been missing is being able to see people in person. I
No
just love
doubt.
it. I love to sit down with our clients and visit with them and see how they're doing and learn. And so not being able to do that in person, it's tough. That's the toughest part about being apart. And, we do our best to stay connected via video and phone calls and other ways, but nothing replaces being in person. So for our listeners out there, we miss seeing you, but we know it's in everyone's best interest to stay away for a little while.
Be
But
socially
hopefully, we'll be
distant.
done with this soon.
Yeah.
So, Michael, one of the things I wanted to share with everybody today, I don't know if they follow you on social media platforms or not, but over the last 30 or 45 days, we've
Mhm.
had, let's say, an extreme amount of really just down in the dumps, negative news, whether it's health related, or just related to the market or
Mhm.
economy in general. It just seems like a barrage of things that have been negative, just spewed out there. And one of the things that you did starting a few days ago was just post an optimistic post, just something refreshing. Let's look at this from a different angle and not just focus on the same thing everyone else is, which is being
Right.
negative. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And there was a few of them, so I kind of curated it,
Yeah.
and there was a few of them I thought maybe I would just kind of throw back at you real quick, and we could just touch on them
For sure.
momentarily, and then move on to some pressing news for this week. So one
Okay.
of my favorite ones was you, you had mentioned a renewed sense of community as we are forced to come together.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
Chat on that just a little bit.
Well, I think, right now, one is a lot of people, just in different parts of the country, but are being forced to limit their activity, be in their homes, be around I know, like in our household during the weeks, especially when Elizabeth's in school, we run at 100 miles an hour, and now we've been forced to slow our pace of life. And then, of course, down here in the South, it's starting to get warm. So we have neighbors and people that aren't traveling and doing their normal schedules. And so we're all here at home, and we'll walk past each other on the sidewalk, and we'll keep our social distance, of course, but we're seeing each other. And I see that happening, and people talking about similar experiences where kids are home from college, and people are being basically forced to just kind of live in their little bubble that they have around them. And I think that that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think too, when we have global news, we hear news from all over the world. We're connected through technology to people that aren't close to us,
Mhm.
geographically, and you have this sort of connectivity around the world. But then when all of it really comes down to the center, it's like, who are those people most close to me? Friends,
Right.
family, neighbors, your community, the businesses that you support that you don't want to see go out of business.
Absolutely.
And then it really kind of brings what matters just right to the core. I thought that was cool. So there was another one you threw out there that said teachers are starting YouTube channels for kids, and
Yeah.
you're excited about the norms in education in the U.S. possibly changing.
I mean, this is a definitely what we would call disruption, right? Disruption in the marketplace, and a lot of not just businesses, but even education systems. I mean, there are school systems around the country that have now announced school's done for the year. We haven't made that announcement locally yet, but now, I mean, they've pushed back to April 30th, and I mean, how much further is there really to go? So, but what's happened in the interim is that I went to go pick up my daughter's Madeline, she's in first grade, and went to go pick up her learning packet from the schools, and her teacher's like, "Hey, I'm going to start a YouTube channel so that the she can tune in and we'll talk through some lessons." And I just think that this is going to force a lot of technology being integrated into some old school systems of thinking, and I think that, I mean, if you look at the number of colleges that are going to continue trying to have the rest of their semester by having online classes and things like that, we're going to see, I think, a lot of places really look to integrate this more in the future.
No doubt. The delivery of education is one of the areas I think could be most impacted over the next decade because one, my 10-year-old is on Google Meetups every day with her
Right.
teacher.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
My
we've
set
had we've had the same here. We've had like the Zoom meetup with the Spanish teacher in the class, and all the kids were there. It was just kind of bizarre.
and their whole attitude changes
Right.
because now they're connected to their teacher. They miss seeing them. They're connected to the 20 other students in the class. It's really amazing to watch it happen. I mean, my 7-year-old is going to have a Google Meetup tomorrow. So
Right.
the students are highly adaptable to the technology. It's comfortable for them. They're not overwhelmed by it at all. If not, it's the parents that are more overwhelmed by the children being able to log into everything, and they've got it all down.
Right.
If you just give them space to do it, I think this is, if this doesn't spur education along, then I don't know what will, because I think this is the most eye-opening experience that we've had. That this can be done without the expense that it's cost today.
Yeah. No, I'm actually I'm very optimistic for it, just because, I mean, technology is not going to go away, and so introducing this and then letting these teachers and professors and educational groups have to deal with it in real time and troubleshoot things in real time. It really does take a lot of the theory and, like, well, what if we try this? Because you're going to be trying it, you're going to be figuring out very quickly like what works and what doesn't work. And so I think it will step up the level of innovation and how we can use it much more rapidly, just because everyone's forced to having to use it right
Something else cool that one of the posts you made was there was an $11,000 part for a ventilator in Italy that was 3D printed for $1.
now. That was insane. I saw that story and I thought, oh my Lord. And actually, there was one I posted today, I saw last night. So we're just, I mean, just the stuff that we're going to see come out of this. I'm so optimistic because, what this has done is disrupted everybody. But there's also been this global, for lack of a better word, call to arms. It's like, look, we got problems. We got this, we have shortages here. We don't have masks. We don't have ventilators. We don't have things that we need. What drugs could we possibly use to combat this thing? And so you have, for once, a lot of people, like the globe in a sense, pulling in the same direction, and you're just going to see massive things. So like that was they printed a ventilator because they were running out of ventilator. I mean, because they're in Italy. This was in Italy, and so Italy's being just ravaged by this virus, and so they're like, can we print this thing? And for crying out loud, they did. And then I saw yesterday where Dyson, the company is very famous for their innovative like fans and vacuums and things like
Hmm.
that. Dyson stepped up and they designed a ventilator in 10 days. They designed one,
Yeah.
and they're now going to produce 15,000 of them. And I'm just like, the level of ingenuity and innovation that is being birthed out of this, because it's out of necessity, right? It's mind blowing, but it's not getting a lot of coverage right now. But I'm trying to look for those things, because I think that that's where we have to find the
Right. That's
positive
kind of
stuff.
that's kind of the point of why I wanted to bring it up is most of this stuff isn't getting picked up because maybe that's not the narrative the news media wants to share right now. I don't know, but my note on that was on that 3D printing. I was like, do not underestimate the collective power of healthcare providers and innovators to collaborate and solve major problems. I think we're going to see this across multiple industries and pitching in, offering support. We've already seen certain car manufacturers turn
Right.
over auto production into producing items needed for the healthcare field, and I think it's just going to continue.
Well,
Um,
that's been something that I've witnessed and I've watched. The the private sector, one of the things they said in one of the press conferences, and one of the things that the media has continued to like question President Trump about is why haven't you invoked this, this act that would basically, have the federal government, start directing companies. And they said, well, companies are already, he said, I haven't invoked it yet because a lot of companies are already doing it. Like they're calling us and saying, hey, you know what? We can make masks. He's like, we can do this. He goes, we wouldn't know, the federal government wouldn't necessarily know who had what capabilities. He says, so we could be telling people to do stuff and they're like, we can't, but they've had things happen. And what's been very interesting, and it will be, when the dust settles on all this, it'll be very interesting to see because they have had to just burn and slash so much red tape and so many regulations just to get ready to be able to respond to this. And I think that there's going to be a real debate to be had about like, do regulations, are we over regulated? Do we regulate ourselves where we can't respond to things the way that we should? What regulations are helpful? What regulations are not helpful? So I think
Yeah.
that's down the road, but I think it'll be happening.
Well, on that note, another post you had was Teladoc will change medical visits forever with virtual doctor visits. Now, this actually got that company name got mentioned directly by
Yeah,
President Trump in one of his addresses. And so Teladoc is a virtual, basically, doctor visit.
right.
And I can't, again, just like having teachers and educators being able to deliver things virtually, I see this as, we know this is coming. This is probably
Yeah.
spurs this along even more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one of the biggest concerns that's been had right now with because of this virus is the overwhelm of the system. And I just think like, during a regular flu season, one of the things I don't want to do is like if I know one, or I suspect one of my kids have an ear infection or something, and I need to take them to urgent care or something because it's after hours, we can't see the pediatrician. I'm nervous because I'm going to be in there with people that might be there for a flu test and things like that. And so it's, I think right now it's a lot of these, what would be the word, like some of these things that aren't requiring an emergency room visit, but you need to talk to a nurse or talk to a doctor and kind of explain what's going on. They can do an interview and maybe prescribe you an antibiotic, things like that, or at least be the first round of assessment and then say, no, you need to go see somebody else. That will, I think, can streamline. There's such potential for that. Think about people who work all day, um, come home and then start feeling poorly at night. And right now, like if you start feeling bad at 9 o'clock at night, your options are going to be very, very limited. But if you have, this a teledoc where you could pull up and say, hey, I don't know what's happening, I just started having fever, I don't feel well, and you could potentially get a prescription called in to a 24-hour pharmacy and start getting treatment like right away. I mean, it's long overdue with some of the technology
Yeah,
we have. It's
without a
long
doubt.
overdue.
This is one of the ways we can potentially expedite treatment plans. We can keep less interaction between sick individuals. So you don't have to go
Yes,
to the doctor's office with
and
10
be
other flu
exposed.
patients and be exposed. And if it can avoid costly trips to the emergency room, that could save people thousands of dollars. Because
Well, I think,
you walk in the door at the emergency room and your bill's already there.
absolutely. But other thing too is like one of the things this virus has done is it's made people talk about like the more vulnerable people, like people who have autoimmune issues or just the elderly. And right now, I mean, think if you're an elderly person at home and you might have a sinus infection. Now, you don't want to go anywhere near a doctor's office right now where they've got this coronavirus or these people going in thinking they need to be tested for the COVID-19. So I think it's great, and obviously they're pumping it, but we just started using it with our own insurance, and we love it. So I can't imagine that it doesn't become more
Right.
normal.
So this is, and just those few businesses we talked about, it's really the next kind of wave of certain technology. I mean, technology that's been there, but it's starting to get more integral in people's daily lives. So video
Yeah,
conferencing, whether that's doing electronic
doing this.
DocuSign, yeah,
Yeah.
doing this. I mean, just signing forms now. I mean, so much of it can be done electronically. So that's
What was
DocuSign.
funny is, so I was talking to one of our attorney friends the other day, and he was telling me that South Carolina, and I don't know about other states, but South Carolina still hasn't enacted this electronic notary where you still have to do in-person notary. And other states are doing this. I'm thinking to myself, like, that seems like common sense, like, that you could do an electronic notary, especially when other states are doing it. Just things like that that are kind of archaic. I mean, we're living in a new time now, and I realize that you still have to try to stay true to the spirit of some of the rules that were in place, but also at the same, recognize that people are going to do a lot more DocuSign, a lot more electronic signatures, things like that. And you got to be able to, keep things moving in that realm as well.
Right. So, and then I'll wrap it up on this one. This was my favorite one. And I'm going to spin this into financial planning
Okay.
and certainly investment management. So this was your day 10 post. So it says trees need wind to blow against them because it causes their root system to grow deeper.
Yeah.
The tree accepts the strong wind as a blessing. Such experiences develop our character and deepen our spiritual roots. So when we grow deep, we stand tall.
Yeah.
I thought that was great because the wind is blowing right
Yeah.
now,
No doubt.
no
Yeah.
doubt, right? And we don't know. We're sitting here today. The market's been on a 3-day uptick. You don't know if this is a little bit of false optimism or if we're going to retest some lows here. I wouldn't be surprised if we retest some lows here in the next few days or weeks. I don't think we're
Yeah.
out of this by any means, but there is optimism, and this does strengthen us.
No, I agree. And that's the thing, is one of the things that's been lost in the last 10 years, but probably definitely in the last 3 to 4 years, is just how volatile and scary that the markets can be. I mean, even we had a good shake in 2018, but we recovered so quickly that no one was even talking about it, that the market
Yeah.
lost like
By
almost
first quarter of
20%.
2019, it was almost over. It was just,
And so I mean, the media couldn't even really cover it because the recovery was so fast that it was just kind of like, oh, okay. And so times like these are tough. They're very tough, but they're also one of the reasons why investing for some people is very hard, because there is an emotional component to it that you have to manage. And we had, in a lot of ways, lost sight of that. We had 2017 was a really strong year for U.S. equities. 2018 we had a shakeup, but the we didn't end up terribly off for the year. And then 2019 was another significantly up year, and then here we come into 2020, and then this black swan type event happens, and we see the fastest 30% drop ever in the history of you know since we started collecting data.
yeah.
And it shell shocks folks. And so that's the thing that is tough right now, is just helping people understand it, like, this is scary, but it's also part of the deal. It's part of the deal.
Yeah. Well, I said the other day to someone, there used to be an old like stock market adage that said you take the elevator down and the stairs up.
Yeah,
So
you take
you move down fast and you kind of grow back, and it feels like these days you take the elevator everywhere. So up and
that's
down.
that's happened for sure. When
I
they
put
when they rewrite them, when they rewrite all the posts about like the 10 worst days in market history, we're going to see several of those days get replaced with like a very short period of time that we've lived through. And there may still be more. I mean, how many times did we wake up in the last 2 weeks where we're limit down before the trading day even started? I mean, just
sure.
nuts. you
Well,
know
it's funny. When I was thinking about your tweet, I said, we test our financial plans against mathematical simulations,
right.
but nothing compares to real life,
No.
because there's a reason why things drop 35%. And that reason seems scary in the moment. And you think this may be the worst financial crisis or economic crisis we've ever had until the next one in 10 or
Right.
12 years. And the thing that really stuck with me about your post was, the more times that you go through this as an investor, the more resilient you become, the more gritty you become. And I think from just working and talking with the people that we get to work with,
Hmm.
you can see a lot of resilience and grit in their attitude toward this. They're just not
Yeah.
as shaken by the drawdown as newer investors are, people just with less experience at it.
Sure. Well, they've had the ability to see the market recover. I think there's a couple of things, too, that should be shared. Is number one is, I think most importantly, everyone knows what has happened. So there's not an unknown about what just happened, because we've had this virus, it's come out, and it's basically forcing countries to have to close down shop. They're having to close, not because, business was going badly, people couldn't afford to be in business anymore. Literally the governments are stepping in and saying you can't, operate, which is scary for enough reasons, but at least we know what happened. It's not like all of a sudden companies just started folding. We started to see, people getting laid off, unemployment rising, and no one could figure out what was going on. So we at least have certainty that we know what has happened. The next thing will be that we're looking for clarity on. And one of the things why I think the market was really acting the way it was is obviously trying to figure out, well, how long will it last? And I think, right or wrong, it's one of the reasons why in the last couple of days you've seen Trump come out and actually try to give a deadline. He's trying to say, I would really like to see things up and running by Easter. Now, will that happen? We don't know. I mean, they're still trying to sort through what's going to happen, but they're at least trying to give somebody, all right, we're going to try to shoot for this benchmark or this deadline. And if we get there, great. If we don't get there, then we'll be trying to set the next, deadline. But, coming out and just saying, well, we're going to close down, and everyone's like, well, how long are we going to close things down for? That's creating enough panic in its own right. So there's that. And then I was on a call with Josh Brown the other day, downtown Josh Brown, and he was just telling a story. He said, I went into, he got in the business, and right when he first started getting into the business, they had the .com bubble burst. And then a few years later, he goes through it again with the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. He goes, so at this point, he goes, nothing scares me anymore. He goes, it's just, we just got to deal with it the best we can. And I think that, for folks who have lived through something like this, we at least know what's happening. We understand what has happened. And so I think there's a lot of resilience that people have, just at least saying, okay, well, if we can sort through it and get through it, we'll be fine. We'll get back on track.
The other thing to remember too, and this is kind of an old hockey analogy, is you want to skate to where the puck is going.
Yes.
The market skates to where it thinks the economy is going.
I agree.
It moves ahead a schedule. And so you might see that sell-off happen very, very rapidly a few weeks ago when the economic data hadn't shifted yet.
Correct.
Right? Unemployment wasn't released yet. But you kind of know where it's headed, and you see that really, really swift drawdown trying to get to where they think the bottom, is going to shift economic returns, right, from profitability, sales,
For
whatever
sure.
that valuation is. And it'll recover faster than the actual economy will in some cases, because it's moving ahead. It says, okay, it's, I see the future, and it looks like we're going to be ahead. And so you have that kind of movement with the stock market. Because I got some questions today. It's like, how could the market be up today when we just had the worst unemployment numbers in since, is this forever? I mean, this is like unprecedented unemployment numbers today. And
but we all knew
might have
they were
gotten
going
there
to
a
be
couple of
bad.
weeks ago in the stocks.
Yeah, the market, we all knew. That's, I had that conversation earlier this morning with someone. I said the unemployment numbers didn't take the market by surprise at all. I mean, we knew they were going to be bad. The media is writing headlines like, well, we were expecting. No, we're expecting this and more. Like, it's, because there are a number of different reasons, and if you want to talk about them, we can talk about them. But the thing is I agree with your premise. The market is going to move much faster than a lot of people realize, both directions. It's gonna react to information and try to price it in much faster. But one of the things that happens in a downturn is, the more downward pressure we get, in my opinion, is you start to see people panic and they want to sell. Well, then selling begets more selling, because as certain prices get broken, as certain trend lines get broken, then some of the algorithms and the computers will sell again. And then you have mutual funds that can't reconcile until the end of the trading day. So then they have to reconcile what just happened to them, which, it just becomes this perpetuating process until, and quite frankly, until everybody's just kind of shot their cannons and it's like there's no sellers left because they've left the market. Everyone's closed their shorts out. I mean, it's literally, it just is it's a cleansing effect that happens, and then you get to reset the table and start looking at the data, and most of the time, there can be an oversold reaction, which is, whether we've seen that, I don't know, but I mean, that tends to be the trend, is you see like an oversold position, there's an overreaction, and then things have to start leveling up again.
Right. So the last thing I'll kind of leave with here and catch up with anything that you want to chat about today was great quote from James Clear came over today. Said, whenever there is a gap between your habits and your goals, your habits will always win.
Yeah.
And I think about this, meaning we have, a discussion with somebody about their retirement goals. And maybe that's a time frame that they want to retire, or a potential income replacement they want to have, or whatever the situation may be that's important to them. And the question then begins, do we have the habits in place to make sure that we reach that ultimate goal? So we all think we're long-term investors, or most people think they're long-term investors. But if we're looking at our accounts every hour or every day or twice a day, that's a bad habit for long-term investing, because you can really get caught up in the moment, the heat of the moment reaction to bad news, and maybe really, really bad news. And it shifts our mindset. And if our habits are different than our goals or don't support it, then the habits win. So I thought that was a pretty cool quote.
Yeah. I mean, I can't add anything of value to that. I mean, it was spot on. I mean, that's, we often talk about investing as a long-term game, and it truly is, but so many folks fall victim to the what's happening now, and their own recency bias, and looking at, what's happening right this moment, and how do I deal with it? So it's, people may have to practice, they might have to abstain a little bit and see. I'm getting My internet's getting crazy, so I'll be quiet.
Oh, social distance from your statement.
Yeah,
Well, hey, buddy, it's good to be face to face virtually with our clients and visit with them again in person. And I'm sure once we are lifted from this distance ban, we'll be very busy over the next few weeks and months to try and get caught up with everybody in
absolutely.
person. But was there anything else you wanted to chat about today?
No, I mean, I think that we covered a lot of good stuff. I mean, the key points is, try to stay positive. Right now, I think the biggest thing you can do to help yourself is to focus on what you're focusing on, right? Are you paying attention to all the negative stuff and the stuff that scares you every day, or are you trying to, live your life the best way you can, stay, with your normal routines, eating healthy, exercising, stay connected with your loved ones, control the things we can control, try to look for the positive. I mean, this is just it's a season, and it'll pass, and then we'll be back up and running again. And that's what I'm believing for. And I believe it's going to happen. And I think it might even happen sooner than we believe. So that's what I would just share with everyone. Just to hang in tough, and watch your mental game.
All right, absolutely. So we are, we'll have more news next week. We have a big $2 trillion stimulus package that is passed by the Senate, being voted on by the House, hopefully today. And
Yeah.
we'll have a lot to break down and discuss about that, how that relief may be paid, who may get checks, how that might assist small businesses, and things that maybe, there's changes to RMD rules for this year. I don't know. We'll see. But there may be a lot
No,
to unpack on
no,
that. So we'll take a
no
little time to
RMDs.
digest that.
They've already said no RMDs this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Planning opportunity.
that's important. That's a big one.
Planning
So
opportunities.
with that being said, we'll have a lot to discuss about that next week and get everybody up to date on and informed.
For sure.
But it's good to be back, and
Yeah.
glad we had a chance to do this.
And as always,
Cool.
thank you guys for listening. Find us on Facebook. If there's anything you want to talk about in the next show, shoot us a message, send us an email at themoneyhuddle@bcplanning.com. And hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time.